Greetings, folks, and welcome to episode 2 of our RP event that we've had going on. We were actually supposed to have started episode 2 yesterday. Something came up on my end at the last minute. Something that I had to take care of for various reasons. I was not able to make it, but now we've got it going on today. And we're going to see what kind of shenanigans we can get into. And also a game of what accent is Cruzan going to have this week?
I'm voting Lebanese.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Hey, I mean, we didn't know last time. We had, like, what, 3 different accents for him?
True, yeah.
Okay, he has a point.
Either going Lebanese or Canadian.
Well, Canadian?
I think the Canadians took offense.
No.
I wasn't aware that was a thing.
I mean, they do have a slight accent, eh? I mean, they do. For all I know, you've got a Tim Hortons in there on that starship.
He's got a good point,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But
Moving
anyway,
along. Yeah, as you guys may be tuning in, you know, as new viewers, or you've caught up with the last 2 episodes, or the last episode, I should say. I'm Artie. I'm GMing. I will be trolling this universe and probably breaking it at the same time. On to my metaphysical right of my ship here. We have Blade playing as Admiral Cruzan of the USS Osijek. Very interesting name. And on to my left we have Timberwolf playing Captain Torrance.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, that's the right ship name, right? I can't remember.
Yeah, the USS Wolf Knight.
The Wolf Knight, yes. Okay.
Due to limitations of the game cannot fully represent my starship. Cryptic, please fix this.
Yes, for those that may have missed that bit, Captain Torrance's vessel is a Block 3 version of a modified Odyssey. So it has a 3rd nacelle on its bottom, as well as some extra strapped weapons on the side and front.
Yep.
If you want to see
We'll
a photo of that, feel free to go check in one of the other previous episodes. I'm sure we have the pictures somewhere in there. Otherwise, contact one of us. We can pass it along.
Yeah, if you want to keep track of our character sheets with us.
Yes. But, yeah. For getting everyone up to date story-wise, we obviously have an extra galactic invasion on our hands. An unknown fleet of 2,000 vessels have showed up and taken residence in the Trailus system, destroyed multiple Starfleet listening posts, as well as occupied the Klingon colony at Trailus 2. We can confirm this by a number of Klingon and civilian refugees coming to Starbase 37, where both Captain Torrance and Admiral Cruzan are stationed currently with a Romulan Republic and Starfleet fleet currently stationed. And yeah, we just know that they're seeming to be on the move. They're preparing to strike multiple bases and sectors with in and around the Trailus system. More or less, you know, Porcus. We got the Datu sector that's you know, probably going to be hit. Starbase 37 probably directly, and the long jump all the way over to Minas Corva, skipping over everything else. But yeah, that is more or less the update. And simply starting off, what are you guys up to? Where are you starting? We're currently at Starbase 37, and we just now know that the ships are probably on the move now.
I'll let Blade go first.
And he throws me under the bus as usual. I am studying different schematics on the bridge, different sensor logs that were brought to us as we prepare to see which way the fleet is going to go. Are they going to come right at us, or are they going to try to go around us?
Alright, for the moment, I'm going to roll my own d20 And Blade, which if you could roll your d20 and then add +2 to it.
That would be a 10 after the 2.
Okay, so what you can see from the intelligence reports from the various allied ships that have decided to share sensor data, a considerable fleet of 300 vessels ranging from destroyers to heavy cruisers to a few battleships here and there, at least by their size you can tell. They're moving straight towards Starbase 37. It's unknown how fast it will get here, or if they have actually engaged yet. But from the position where they were seen last, they just seem like it's a beeline straight to Starbase 37. Along the other lines, you have another group of 150 ships heading off to the Forcus system, and another 150 heading off to the Donatu sector, so straight to Drozana and the other civilian stations around there. For the moment, you actually have no idea what happened to the fleet that's heading towards Minas Corva. From what you can tell, the sensor reports had them at Trailus system, and now they're just gone. They're not accounted for.
I no be liking this. From what we be seeing from these sensor logs, it looks like they be heading right for us. I don't know where this other fleet is gone, Captain, but that worries me.
Worries me as well. We definitely need to figure out. I mean, at least we know where some of them are headed in a general direction, but to lose an entire battle group, troublesome. They could still be heading for Minas Corva and heading for Cardassian space, or there is the potential that have unknown yet to us. They could have some sort of stealth technology we're unaware of.
Aye, that is a possibility. At the very least, we should be letting the Cardassians know that this fleet could be heading their way. In the meantime, Captain, we must at least prepare here.
True. We also need to let the Forcus system know. That is going deeper into Klingon territory. How would you proceed to shore up our defenses here, in case they attack here first?
We must bring in some help. Just the few ships here we have are not going to be enough, I'm afraid. If they decide to attack full on, we cannot allow them to capture this base. Otherwise, they're going to have a straight shot straight towards Earth in the heart of the Federation itself. We cannot be letting that happen.
I agree. What forces do you want to pull from? Because we have multiple allied and our own fleets nearby.
Yes. From what you can also tell from your current logistics report, the Klingon group that was over at Granada Station has actually moved in and is ready to be deployed by whatever decision you guys make. The details of the fleet, you have 300 vessels in the entire battle group, ranging from bird of preys to Negvar battleships and a few Vokuv carriers. There actually is no border skews in this fleet. They're all currently set up in the home fleet, or the second wave is currently preparing for this further engagement. Besides that, you have the current 250 Starfleet vessels at Starbase 37, plus the 60 Republic vessels also at Starbase 37.
What about our, from what I'm looking at on our battle map?
Yes.
Looks like we might have a couple of minor fleets near Dunatu sector. Looks like Federation and Klingon, possibly?
Yes. The Starfleet patrol group in the Nanatu sector, which is dubbed Patrol Group 3. It's currently set up with about 25 ships, but they're spread out pretty thinly, everywhere between Drozana and where that currently is on the map. The Klingon group there, Patrol Group 4, yeah, surprise, surprise. They're also about the same fleet size, but contain more battle cruisers than the heavy cruisers. They have more more Vorchas and a few lighter Negvars in that fleet instead of the bird of prey loadout. While the Starfleet group has anywhere between light cruisers to the heavy cruisers.
All right, what fleet movements do you think we should do, Blade? We've got defenses. We've got a large fleet here. Looks like we got some backups near Lunsford and Deep Space 13. How do you want to move things around?
Let's borrow the Klingons and leave them just outside the system. Since they've got some of the heavier ships, they might be able to pick off some of the smaller ones that come in. The Federation fleet, I would say, move close to Drozana Station. This way we can kind of shore up a wall a little bit.
Maybe create a temporary barrier just in case we can slow them down.
Yep. Create a dragnet, if you will. That way we can at least see where they're going and slow them down.
I agree.
Okay, so the plan is to divide the forces basically and have them make a wall between Starbase 37 all the way down into the upper edge of the Boris sector. Is that, if I heard that right?
Essentially,
okay.
Yes.
All right. Logistics reports that they are preparing to move the fleets as you've requested. They're attempting to alert civilian colonies within the Natu sector and Boris sector to go ahead and start evacuating in case this battle, these few skirmishes along that defensive line, become far too bloody. They worry that many of the current colonies that are there just don't have the active defenses like they do have at Forcus, as well as many other places in the Nanatu sector. Yeah. There we go. That's the logistics report for you. They're just preparing to set up the fleet how you have sectioned it up, and yeah.
Alright, can I move one or two fleets a little bit that are in one of our outlying sectors?
Yes, actually. Which group are you thinking?
If I'm looking at our map right here, have a lot of outlying fleets that if we're trying to slow them down, we might be able to use them a little earlier. I know we're trying to set up to get the Cardassians involved if they hit Minas Corva, but I'm looking at a Starfleet. We got a Starfleet, Federation fleet near Starbase Archer, way out there, and we've also got KDF and Fed fleet near K-13, and I'm also looking at the two Romulan fleets there in the Gasco sector. I was thinking about moving two Romulan fleets from the Gasco sector to Japori. Move them in about 2 sector blocks. They can be closer for striking distance if need be. Then here, I want to move the K-13 fleets
Right.
to the Ravev sector. They're going one sector diagonally,
Okay, so into Breen territory. I get you.
just so that they can, they're closer. I mean, they might have to deal with the Breen. That might be a Breen are just unpredictable as it is. But I want to start moving some of these outlying fleets in. There's not a lot of heavy travel. You don't want to get caught where they're starting to get closer to key territories, and it's going to take days before our fleets can react.
Right, doing a setup movement before the big attacks happen, so you already have people moving to the aid of these defending locations. I understand.
Yeah. I'll probably I'm thinking about moving the 3 Romulan fleets that are up in the Hobus and Demoris sector probably down one block here soon. They'll just probably have to make for sure that the Federation won't see it in a negative light. They're just trying to consolidate forces, that way the reaction time is better.
Indeed.
Alright. So, the proposal for moving those is so far going in and pending. From what Starfleet Command can tell you so far about moving the outlying fleets, like in the Zenith Expanse and over in the Draconis sector, they can say they could start moving them. It will take considerable time to actually get them to what would be said as the current front line, as well as I've already sent envoys to the Cardassian territory as well as to the Romulan Star Empire, or what's left of them up there by Hobus, to see if they could join in. Currently there's no reply on that.
Okay.
As well as from what you got information from the Romulan commander on station, they've already requested that they've requested to move the fleets that you've said in the Gasco sector inward. It will also take the same considerable time, but they will, if you attempt to move them straight down to the Donat 2 sector, it will be here within 3 weeks, at least, due to all the other fleet logistics they have to get through to get out from the Gasco sector, in case the Romulans get attacked themselves. They are worried that if they don't consolidate their own forces, that spreading out their forces away from their home territory, it would leave them open to attack, and they don't want to have any fleets too far out of their sectors. So,
I got you.
beyond that, if you attempt to move any of the fleets in from the surrounding sectors like Ryza, the Kasei, and anywhere from like the Homie cluster and so on, they can be here within the week or in less. So that they're prepared for mobilization as soon as you give the order.
I'm going to say move the Ryzian fleet up to the Aldebaran system.
Alright, let me see if I can find it on the map. Where are we looking?
Yeah, because, I mean, hell, if they get through all those star bases and fleets, Ryza either way is going to be a sitting duck. As we're trying to stop them before they get there.
Have we moved the fleet up near Starbase 517 yet?
Let's see, 517. And I've lost for 517. Oh, there it is. Note that fleet is still currently where they are. That's actually a part of the group that sent the envoy to the Star, what's left of the Star Empire. But you can go ahead and move that fleet if you wish it. Basically, they're prepared to move further south whenever you are. So.
I would say let's leave them there for the moment. Would say take the group from New Australia. Move them in to I'm going to say move them into Vega.
Okay. Alright, let's see, one moment, and, okay. The New Australia fleet would be prepared to move out. They're just waiting on last-minute supplies from their current allied, current Starfleet base in the Tau Epsilon sector in the Outback, a microgalaxy just on the outer edge of, kind of below the Milky Way. It's in a weird position, but New Australia has a corridor between their starbase, basically. They're getting some extra supplies from them just before they move out, so they'll be prepared by the end of the week.
Alright, well, while the fleets are moving, I wanted to go over some of the sensor logs that the USS Sutherland and a few of our allies and civilians have gotten from the first encounter. I wanted to go over it from a tactical standpoint. If there's anything we can do to adjust our tactics when we face them again.
Okay. Let's see. As your captains have seen many battles and whatnot, both of you give me D20 roll and add a +5 to it, please.
Alright, with the +5 for me, it's 19.
Cool.
With the +5 for me, I got lucky as crap and it's a 25.
Nice. Alright. So from what you can tell from your previous experiences dealing with many different cultures and the various battles since 2409, the current fleet loadouts that you've seen and their tactics are meant to force you to pull your ships away from a larger target. The unknown loss of sensor data for the fleet heading to Minas Corva, that is part of a divisionary tactic that you have seen once before actually fighting the Klingons during the Klingon War. The attempt to basically attack civilian sectors within the nearby areas by the Trailus system. They're attempting to, from what you can tell, draw your ships away from there so they can slip by. Besides that, the weapons and the shielding for the vessels, they actually have minimum shielding, but just enough to defend from at least a couple single large blasts. But most of their defenses comes from an advanced version of a blade of armor of sorts. Their weapons, on the other hand, from what you can tell from the sensor data from many of the surviving vessels from the Trailus massacre and the Sutherland, their energy weapons are a anti-electron tachyon base. More or less, they fire a projectile the size of a cannon round, basically, and they launch it at an enemy vessel more or less at the speed of light. The added anti-electrons force it through the shields, and the impact from the energy round basically attempts to obliterate a target within a near instance of firing. So it's not only just an energy type; it's more or less a cannon round with the assisted energy type, going through whatever it's targeting. Along with that, it is also noted that they seem to have a very large focus on missiles instead of just full-on torpedoes. So they're going in a very large, wide array of scattering many missiles towards single targets and figure that one of them's bound to hit. But these missiles, from what we can tell, is also not as destructive as the anti-electron weapons. At least
low-grade missiles.
Yes.
And their variation of maybe a railgun. If you're describing that the way I think you are.
Yes. Essentially, it is a railgun that would fire a cannon round more or less at the speed of light, in a sense. But with that, it's just slow enough that it won't, enter warp for the sake of argument. But basically, it's the added energy for the fire is what impacts the shield first, and once the cannon round hits the shield, it would attempt to pierce the shield, giving a heavy kinetic explosion plus the active energy already on the shield. So essentially, a railgun, if we're going in that way of explaining, yes.
Okay. It's an enhanced railgun. It's something it's more than that, but in its mechanical variation of firing.
In simple terms, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So basically a railgun supercharged with anti-electrons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so a type of antimatter kinetic weapon, in a sense.
So my first thing is we've got all this information. It's good to know that their shields aren't that great. We just got to get through their armor. Good thing, in a sense. We don't have to deal with fielding that much. First thing I'm curious about is I'm pouring through this data, all this sensor data. I'm wanting to see if first any of our captains tried modulating their shields or enhancing their hull armor. If any of them fared better because of it. I've had dealings with the Borg and the Iconians, all these quote unquote superpowers that can, especially with the Borg, they can adapt what we're doing and all of that. We've learned from them, be able to remodulate our shields, readjust our shield geometry. When it comes to survival, I'm wondering if any of our captains tried any of these defensive tactics we've learned, and their ships, even if they were destroyed, their hulls and whatnot, they survived longer. They survived better than others in the fleet.
Okay. From what you can tell from the surviving vessels from the Trailus massacre, you have an account of 7 vessels of very different damages and whatnot from the attack that seem to be in far better condition compared to many of the other surviving vessels. One of them, a Orion battleship that was traded in the area at the time, it apparently has a variant modulating shield system that was meant to defend them from Iconian anti-proton weapons at a time, during the height of the Iconian War. From what you can tell, this was more or less spitballed and put and kind of slipshod put it together for just the ship, from what engineering teams can tell you. But it seemed to fare a whole lot better compared to the other vessels of the same size and type during the engagement. A few other smaller ships of very different classes also had slight damages, but seemed to also fare a lot better along similar lines, but were built for survey missions, from what you can tell. They had stronger shields to deal with variant different gas giants and forced to being close to stars and the star coronas and stuff like that. So, from what you can tell, actually give me a roll and +2.
All right. D20.
Yes.
All right. Crap. I've got 2 + 2. That's 4.
Okay. From what you can tell, at least from what you can tell, the something with the type of shielding, with how it's supposed to defend itself from the power of like a sun's corona when it gets close enough to do such a deep scan, must have defended the vessels a little bit better than other standard shield systems. Although, from what you can also tell, some of these sensor logs are also badly corrupted. But that's more or less all you have. That some vessels work, some of them have a shield system meant for going into gas giants and being fairly close to stars that seem to fare a lot better than most ships. But you also have the one Orion ship. Yeah.
We're dealing with shield systems that can deal with high energy anti-proton weaponry.
Right.
Which the Iconians had extremely high level anti-proton weaponry. And then types of metaphasic shielding. I remember the study from Dr. Rega, cunning little Ferengi, the 24th century. That's if my notes are correct.
Correct.
He was dealing with shielding that would allow a starship inside the sun's corona and closer without really damaging the starship. About high energy plasma and high energy anti-protons. I've dealt with high energy plasma before with the Borg, so we're not a stranger to extreme high level radiation, plasma, and anti-proton. Not much, but it's a start. We are going to have to strengthen our hulls, similar veins. These railguns are operating around that same principle, doing the similar damage to those. Our hulls are going to have to be ramped up to deal with not just kinetic weaponry, but also a variation of what would be considered plasma and anti-proton mixture. That could be problematic depending on the hull armor of the starships out there, are better equipped than others. Especially those poor little Miranda classes. Alright, the other thing I need to figure out is, from those sensor logs, we've got a fairly good idea of their defenses and what we might be facing, and what we can start off with for defenses. We'll have to figure out more in combat, I guess, by fire. But I'm trying to figure out, as I'm also going through these sensor logs, if by that same token, dealing with these adversaries, if anybody was able to have variations of their weapons, maybe variable load torpedoes, or enhancing them with newer warheads, or remodulating phasers like we would against the Borg, maybe a higher or lower EM band, has proven through these combat sensors, all the combat data, if that has proven more effective or less effective against our foes. Because maybe their armor is great, but it has a weakness at a certain frequency modulation that we can actually pierce through it.
Let's see. Alright, sadly, a lot of the sensor data is still being reconstructed, but from what we have current data, there was a few vessels that were able to more or less do a remodulating frequency like they would against the Borg, but focus fire on the broadside aft section of some of these larger vessels. After multiple barrages, the shields finally gave way and were able to pierce what could possibly be a weak spot in the overall superstructure of some of these larger ships. Due to these effect of the corrupted data logs and whatnot, we don't know how effective the damages were on that vessel, but from what you can tell, you could get through the shields in that way. other parts of the sensor log actually show multiple planetary defense satellites and other larger vessels, more or less ramming some of these larger vessels as well. And the resulting antimatter explosion were able to severely cripple these vessels, plus any of their smaller escorts. But that is a very high cost of using ram ships, from what you can tell.
Well, going on that vein, dealing with high-level weaponry. So we can at least pierce their shields with phasers for focus firing, and that's something we're done before. Focus fire on a Borg cube when fleet was attacking in Sector 001. Enterprise E had everybody focus fire on what seemed to be a non-essential part of the cube, and that actually ended up overloading the cube and blowing it up. So we could be dealing with something similar to that, being able to overload their shields and potentially, we're going to have to test this in combat, overload their hull armor. Maybe there's a limit to their hull armor. I would think there would be. But if we're dealing with high-level matter-antimatter explosions, torpedoes might be able to help a little bit at full yield, but we do have other options we could try. We've got quantum torpedoes that are hit a lot harder than a photon torpedo. We've got transphasics from the Borg. We also have, on various vessels, we have a few tricobalt devices we could try. We do have some options there. And the few experimental goodies on my ship, it's high enough energy, maybe it might just be enough. We will have to see if we can get a nearby vessel, if they do engage in combat, if they can stay afloat long enough. We're going to have to see if they can try out a few tactics on the fly for us so we have a better idea of what's going on.
Okay.
And also brings me to a couple of things. As you know, my ship has a Corbomite reflector, which is good at deflecting kinetic damage and kinetic-type weaponry. It's not going to be nearly as effective as against the anti-electrons, but I wonder how effective and how was I going to word that? I'm wondering how that could play in as a wild card. How many ships we have that could potentially utilize a Corbomite reflector.
Let's see. I would like you to give me a roll, and since you have a lot of knowledge of engineering as well as something from your ship, add a +5 to it.
D20, I'm
Yes.
assuming? A +5 would make it that would be a 17.
Okay. From what you can tell using the Corbomite arrays, at least... Ooh, let's see. Let me do the math real quick. If you had enough resources to build enough Corbomite generators, or at least modulate the shields to be somewhat similar, you have at least 175 vessels out of the entire Starfleet group, out of the 15th Fleet group, to basically run the same tactic by that roll. Let me do a dice roll here real quick. From what you can tell, many vessels from all sorts of shapes and sizes should be able to work, but most of the modern vessels would be the better choice, from what you can also tell.
Would I need to roll to see if that would be something that could be applied to my vessel as well, since it's not standard on my vessel?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Just the standard roll, D20.
Got it. I have got a 13.
From what you can tell, it would take a little while to modify it and to implement the system into your ship's high-powered energy use. But it could be doable. It's not entirely 100% for sure thing like most of the other vessels in the fleet, due to the
Okay.
high energy out from some of your special weapons.
Gotcha. Could interfere with implementation of some of the weapons arrays that I've got.
Right.
Well, I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and order my crew work with Darkblade's crews in
Whoops.
on getting that implemented into my ship to see if we can integrate it to some degree on this vessel before we have to face combat. Kind of as a backup shielding. I have the special shielding I installed. I want to make sure I have every edge that I can have.
All right. I would like
Actually, a
you
good
both
question
to.
from Spoon in chat.
Let's see what we got.
Says, what about the ablative armor that Voyager brought back when they returned to Earth? Would possibly save refitting some hulls.
Oh, that is a nice idea. One moment. Let me do some supplementary rolls here. From what you can tell with that idea, as one of the captains has shared, what if we get Starfleet logistics and R&D to create some more ablative armor shells, more or less, for the variant different vessel sizes, it could be doable. Actually, both of you give me a roll real quick. No modifiers, just simple D20.
I have got 15.
8.
All right. Let me add a roll here. All right. If Starfleet R&D plus many of the other factions like the Klingons and the Romulans attempt to assist, you should have at least 50 blade of hull armor modifications to at least 50 vessels of any of the ships that you choose. From that, it should be here by at least next week, due to all the other ship movements. One of the fleets that would be coming to reinforce our current position would be what help out, who brings the ablative shells to modify the vessels. So there you go, 50 ablative armor things.
How many Corbomite capable ships do we have with us here at 37 at the moment?
Currently we have at least 20 that could use it immediately without any modifications, and including your ship, 11.
And I've got my crew trying to struggle with your crew to get it working on mine.
Right. That your ship would be a part of the other vessels that would have some issues with putting it together. Let me see. Let me get you an actual number of what ships are having some issues with it. Yeah, who knew this game would have so much math? Ha ha ha.
Yeah, and
Welcome to Dungeons and Math.
Okay,
Captain Spoon does bring up an interesting point. We're going to have to make for sure that the armor-capable starships, if we're doing ablative hull shells, thank you for that intelligence, Captain Spoon. We're going to have to make for sure that any of those ships that we put the hulls on have significant torpedo array systems. One thing I do remember about the limitations of the ablative hull armor is that beam arrays are typically not... You've only got torpedo tube access.
That is something to think about. Yes. The good thing about this situation at the moment is that you do not have the ablative armors with you just yet. At least the 50 that are on its way. So you can add those to whatever ships you choose.
Yep.
I wanted to say load those on our torpedo-heavy ships like the Akiras and the Steam Runners.
Yep. Can I roll to check to see how many ships nearby are loaded with Cobalt or heavier torpedo-like devices? Because I'm thinking if
Dragon
it's
Captain
User was
Spoon down.
moved to your
It's-
channel.
if we're talking about high yield kinetic or higher damage, what we were looking at the starships exploding, we could need a very large explosion. We might need things not just like tricobalts, but your torpedoes that are also causing rifts in space to actually tear the ships apart, possibly, or slow them down. Am I able to roll to see how many ships are capable in this section, at least in our battle fleet currently?
Currently, we have 11 ships that are currently carrying an assortment of tricobalt warheads. This includes the 4 Jupiter carriers currently at Starbase 37, the 4 Yamato-class dreadnoughts, and 3 of the flagship star cruisers sitting outside.
Okay.
The complement of the tricobalts vary, but from what you can tell, you have at least enough for a good amount of strike runs with the tricobalt explosives.
It's first to tell to see if they're even going to be effective at first. Then we can start doing striking runs. We're going to have to just basically do a close range test fire on one of their ships.
Yes. Also to add to that, the tricobalts on the Jupiter carriers have been modified for being carried on their small craft, basically as strike bombers. While for the Yamatos and the other flagship star cruisers, they're modified just to be fired from the ship itself instead of a small craft.
Fine, that's fine. Weird question.
Go for it.
Any of them have, and this might be something we have to ask the Romulans for, I don't know if we have any currently, have access to trilithium resin to further enhance the tricobalt torpedoes. I've heard that the mixture of trilithium resin in a tricobalt torpedo significantly enhance the warhead. And I'm trying to think of worst case scenario here.
Let's see. Give me a roll and a +1.
Alright. The dice fell, hold on. I have got a 12.
12. All right.
Yeah.
So you could discuss this with the Romulan battle group CO. From what you can tell so far, they don't really approve of the idea because the idea is far more destructive than what we've seen in previous history by trying to use trilithium resin. But if push comes to shove, they think that they could at least get you a small supply to work with.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of doomsday scenario. If trilithiums work, but they're not as effective as we want, we might have to just up it the ante, as it were.
Okay. Oh, and I would like you both to roll for me. And Timber, I need you to give a +3 to yours. These are sensor rolls.
Alright. Alright, so 18 plus 3, I've got 21.
I've got a
Oh.
3.
Jesus!
All right.
You're telling me.
Moment, let me just get another few rolls in here. Okay. Suddenly, all around you on the station goes to red alert. And from the various viewports that you may be able to look out of, you see a vessel drop out of warp just a little ways from you. Just a little ways outside weapons range, but still within visual range.
Okay.
It is an unknown classification, but it does show as a hostile IFF. Information friend or foe. from what you can tell, this vessel just immediately from sensor contact matches the description of some of the vessels that were from the Trailus system.
Oh crap.
Yes.
Question. Actually, two questions.
Go for it.
Since my ship also carries a limited amount of torpedoes that deliver micro organisms that are capable of eating away at
Right.
hull armor, how would that affect possibly increasing damage or weakening the armor on the ships, or exploding an already existing weakness?
Okay, so with the microorganism torpedo idea, from what you can tell from current sensor rolls, they should be able to work as long as they can get through the shields. If it gets directly onto the armor, it would be proven effective. But if it has to eat through the shields first, it will be slightly, having to use its energy just to try to get through the shields itself. So
Not be nearly as effective. Okay.
at least to get through the armor itself.
Also, one other potential one
Go for it.
that could affect stuff. Sensor logs and theoretical data from the Azurians, Cruzan's
Right.
species. As far as theoretical data, since it never really got out of the theoretical stage as to where they could build prototypes, how does that potentially play in?
Give me a standard D20 roll. 15? Alright. So, for any prototypes that, or at least the designs and whatnot, they should be doable if you can get the designs to a, Starfleet Command, and they'll get it to engineering or whoever needs to work on it. Which prototypes were you thinking?
Thinking of building a prototype generator and potentially dark matter bombs.
Dark matter bombs. All right. If the designs, from what you can tell, just they seem to have gone through the best minds on your home world, and they're up for use. But as your people want to share this data, they are somewhat reluctant because they don't want it accidentally being used on civilian targets, obviously. But from what you can tell, that as long as you get it to any of the research and development groups, they should be implemented and be more or less built. It just depends on how long it will be, and that will be determined next episode, actually. Back to orbit, the vessel seems to just sit there, and you can tell that it's actively scanning all the vessels nearby. It has not made a hostile movement into weapons range, but it is just watching for the moment.
Okay, so they're on our doorstep and they're trying to scan us, Cruisin'. What do you think we should do here? Because if they take any of this data back on what we're have here currently, they could use that, get their fleet ready. This could be like a warning scout. I think we need to stop them.
Aye, Captain. But first, let's see if we can't at least see what these people want. My vessel will take the lead in the fight if it comes to it, since we have our Corbomite reflector ready to go. You will need more time to implement it on your ship, and I would rather not take chances just yet. In the meantime, jam the long-range transmissions.
And I'll have my communications officer work on jamming their long-range comms.
Okay, for jamming, give me a roll D20. Do you have any ECM warfare stuff on your ships?
I'd say low-grade level 1.
Okay. +1.
Alright. And I've got 15 plus 1, so that's 16.
Alright, from what you can tell, communications are jammed from across the spectrum from what you can tell on your stations. At least long range, because all of a sudden you're getting a wide beam hail from the vessel.
Cruz.
Edson, open a channel.
When the channel opens, there's no image, just a dark screen, and what you can guess is static, slightly kind of screening in from the screen on all sides, somewhat distorting the image if there was anything on the other side of that blackness, and a deep hum is slowly bellowing through the channel. After a few seconds pass, a deep voice speaks up, and vessels of this galaxy, you have seen the darkness and you have failed to... Sorry, I'm losing my voice all of a sudden. And failed to survive against it. We are here to light the way. If you wish, stand aside. If you do not, prepare to be destroyed.
I don't know about you, Curzan, but that sounds like a threat to me.
Unknown vessel, you have scanned us, but note that we have also scanned you as well. We are not as defenseless as you would have us believe. State your intent.
As we can tell from this impure galaxy, you deserve nothing but death. Just amassing this force here is obviously a sacrilege to anything you deem holy in this galactic arm.
I don't like the sound of this. It almost sounds like a aid, if you will. This won't go well if he able to figure out we're jamming his transmissions to the extent we are.
Almost on cue of saying it's a crusade, dark bellowing drums start beating from within the transmission and are slowly getting louder. I would like you to both roll sensor scans again.
Alright.
17.
I've got 15.
Okay. You can see them just before they warp in. You have about a minute or so before they warp in, but you have about 50 vessels just on its way, about to warp in right on top of you. From what you can tell by the trajectory, they can warp in within 5 kilometers of each vessel in the current front line.
Oh crap, this isn't good. This is good. Most of our ships aren't even ready, cruising. I'm gonna call for red alert for the fleet. Raise shields, charge weapons.
I don't like it either. Attention all vessels of the fleet. Myself and Captain Torrance are taking command. All ships, go to immediate red alert, charge weapons, and prepare for battle.
My bridge, I'm gonna have my comm officer spread what we've learned from them so far, from the earlier sensor logs.
All
Learned
right.
so far that they, from what our ship hulls have discerned, even though these sensor logs are corrupted to a degree, is that remodulating towards high energy plasma and antiproton might have an effect. Try to keep your shields remodulated somewhere near that frequency modulation area. We're fighting the Borg.
Ensign, prepare the microorganism torpedoes. Let's see what they can do against these bloody bastards.
And almost as if on cue again, these 50 vessels of very different sizes, almost the size of the Odyssey classes in the fleet, just warp in right on top of many of these smaller vessels of the front line. Immediately, just flashes of light. They just rampage and push almost 4 or 5 vessels just immediately out of the front line. And I would like you both to give me a roll. No modifiers.
Modifiers. I got a 14.
I have a 12.
All right. From what you can tell immediately, none of these ships are these are what you could consider the heavy cruisers of the fleet. Any of the other vessels are somewhat of a corvette size, and from the close range of these scans, you can tell that the heavy cruisers are just full-on armor. But the anti-electron particle weapon, railgun weapons on both dorsal and ventral sides of the hull, while everything on the center and forward is just giant bulks of thick armor. The corvettes, on the other hand, are almost nearly no armor and just strapped with 10 tons of missiles to be able to fire on all sides. And now one more roll from both of you, and Blade, since you said you were going first, you get a +3 for initiative.
Crap, I got a 7.
Counting the +3, that would give me a 20.
Okay. So in that case, it'd be Blade, then Timber, then the bad guys. Combat has now begun. What would you like to do first, Blade?
Ensign, target their transmitters and fire phasers full of blast.
Alright. Targeting transmitters on the first vessels that showed up, or one of the heavy cruisers that are nearing your position. You have about 4 heading right
Scout
towards
vessel
you.
with the scans.
Which one? The first vessel? Alright.
First vessel.
Let's see. Roll d20. And since you have already were preparing for taking out their communications, give me a +2 to that roll.
$16 with the +2.
Okay. So the first varying shots just hit the forward shielding and just absorb for the moment. No considerable damage from what you can tell. Enemy shields are still holding, but they are slowly advancing. All right, Timber.
All right. Not sure of what we're dealing with here, but going on the sensor logs, we might have something.
Yeah.
So what I'm thinking is, I want to charge one of the corvettes you said was bristling with missiles.
Yes, you have
Okay.
the one head ship that's right in front of you, 4 of the heavy cruisers heading towards your position right behind it, and 4 more of these corvettes with you.
Alright, so I want to see what would happen. I'm charging this corvette. Going off the sensor data, I want to focus on my fire on specific target on their shields to pierce their shields. What I'm going to use is a mix of my phasers and the phased energy arrays that are built in, since they do hit harder than a phaser. I want to try and penetrate the shields near one of the missile clusters, and also launch 3 torpedoes at that same spot. I'm trying to overload the shields to get to the missiles and cause the missiles to explode.
Okay, since you have stuff prepared for this, another +2 to your roll.
Alright. I need a bigger table for this. Rolling off the table. Hold on. Alright, I've got a 10 with the +2.
Okay. From this attack on trying to take out a number of the missile corvettes, from what you can tell, only a few of them seem to have worked, but the corvettes seem to have launched the missiles just before detonation. The corvettes themselves get scarred on all sides from the few numbers that are heading closer to you, but are still in considerable structural integrity is still fine, and only a few number of the missiles only exploded, not all of them, as you were thinking.
I was able to at least penetrate their shields and do a little bit of damage to them.
Yes.
Okay.
But it wasn't.
I'll take it.
It wasn't enough to detonate all the missiles as you were thinking, but it was enough to at least penetrate the shield in the first shot.
Yep, I'll take that.
Yeah. All right, and now hostile roll. We will go with the flagship first. And all right, the flagship is attempting to fire a forward barrage of anti-electron at the station right behind both your flagships. And let me roll for making sure it doesn't hit. And the station's fine. The shots go wide and barely graze the shield. Huh, how about that? All right.
Cruisin', have you noticed that their targeting arrays are way off? I mean, that station is massive, and they didn't even hit it.
I have...
It scraped the shield. From what you can tell, it might have been targeting one of the other vessels, but there's no way to confirm from just its wide arc towards the station.
Need to make for sure as this continues, if maybe scrambling their targeting sensors as this goes on could help us.
Alright. The 4 heavy cruisers move into a almost point-blank position, moving into 3 kilometers of both your vessels, and are attempting to shield scrape you in an attempt to ram. I would like you both to roll dodge for me.
Alright. I got a 19.
And I have a 14. He's got a 19, I've got a 14.
Okay. By those rolls, let's see, you dodge no problem, but this also gives you a target of opportunity since they actually rolled pretty substantially terrible with 2 1s.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I will allow you guys to target back in this brief chance.
Okay.
And see if you can do any damage. So roll your d20s, and since you both have the advantage, I will give you both +5s.
Alright. So 13 plus 5 is another 18.
I have a 10.
Okay.
With the 5?
Yeah, with the 5.
Well, with that, it still hits both ships, both of the incoming heavy cruisers. Let's see, so with that, I would like you both to roll your d6s, 2 rolls each.
Alright, I've got a pair of twin die. I'll just roll those.
Yep.
Alright.
Let me grab another d6 real quick.
Alright, I've got a 4 and I've got a 2.
I have 2 5s.
Okay. So Timber's crippling shot goes straight into the dorsal section of the attempted ram heavy cruiser, and goes straight through the anti-electron cannon right on its top. From what you can tell, the whole system right there explodes, and there seems to be a few substantial what's the word?
Secondary explosions?
Secondary explosions. I lost it for a second there. But the ship still seems to be running straight past you as you go over it. But a heavy blow to the ship nonetheless. For Blade, the targets seem to not hit anything really specific, but it does cripple through the dorsal section of the armor, shearing quite a bit of the dorsal bits off and showing what you could consider the soft underbelly. Alright. Now moving on to the missile corvettes. Let's see. Alright. Ooh. Okay. You have 2 missile corvettes going straight in and attempting to fire all sorts of missiles. about 20 of them towards the nearby Allied vessels near your position. Those ships seem to be taking out the missiles no problem, or tanking it right out. But those two missile corvettes seem to be distracted with that. Another missile corvette is now barreling straight toward, trying to get right past your positions and going straight for the station.
Cruzan, it looks like they're not really focused on us. They don't see the ships as much of a threat.
I concur. Captain, we must destroy that scout. We cannot allow him to get back with the sensor data. I will intercept the ship going towards the station since my Corbomat reflector is ready. In the meantime, Ensign, load micro warhead torpedo and target that passing ship. Fire at the soft underbelly just exposed with a microorganism torpedo.
Okay. Alright, give me the roll to see if it hits.
I'm assuming
Yes.
D20. And that is an 11.
And it hits. Let's see, roll 2d6. And since it's the microorganism torpedo, give me another +4 to whatever you get.
Yeah. I've got a 3 and a 2, and then add
Yes.
4 to that. So that would be a 7 and a 6.
Oh no, it's the total, then yeah, the +4.
Oh, the total? So, okay, that would be 5, then add 4, that would be
Okay.
a 9.
Well, either way, the torpedo strikes the side of the small corvette. The initial explosion of just the impact sends the corvette trailing right off of its course. The microorganisms are noticeably just eating straight through the shields, no problem with the explosion. And suddenly the ship just launches all of its missiles and explodes. It seems like the microorganism torpedo seemed to have worked, at least on the smaller vessel, for the moment. And
Cruzan, you got something going there with that microorganism torpedo of yours.
alright,
Hi, Captain.
let's see, let me do a quick re-roll for that. And from what you can tell from nearby Allied vessels currently holding their spot, as well as the station, battle lines have more or less been drawn, and the enemy vessels are not holding back. They're just trying to push right through to the station. But now,
What's the status of that scout? Is it still off to the side?
oh no,
or is
that
it
scout
engaged?
Scout is fully engaged, and it's within right within 6 kilometers of your ship, and is firing multiple shots at varying different torpedoes and whatnot going around its ship. From what you can tell, it's not a scout at all. It is actually possibly the flagship of this current group. But for the moment, give me another sensor roll, d20s.
All right.
And this probably work out for the best.
Crap! Alright, I've got...
You roll off the
yeah,
table
I got
again.
an 11, though.
If it fell off the table, re-roll.
Okay.
The floor is dangerous. It gives bad rolls.
I've got a 10.
Oh, that was even worse. Okay.
Got a
Yeah.
I've got a 4.
God,
Well,
your sensor rolls suck.
Well,
Yes, they do
okay,
today.
luckily for you, since it's so close, you actually sensors are all going off, reading a very large dark matter reaction from the head vessel that's nearing towards you. Just the sheer visual of it is actually giving sensor data a run for its money. Its sensors are able to trying to collect as much data as possible, that it's not allowing anyone to really view what's actually going on. But from what you can tell, just looking at the viewports, that lead vessel that warped in first is now loading up this large particle blast on the nose of it, just preparing to fire some sort of energy weapon, from what you can tell, most likely dark matter from what the sensor readings are giving. And everything's just lights going off, the bright lights, and then snap.
Cruise in.
Yes.
With that, I'm going to actually pause here and say it's to be continued.
Ah, crap!
He would do that. He would do that
Damn
to
it.
us. He would do
Okay,
that to us.
me and Blade can work on strategy. See if we can work out something.
Mhm.
Yes.
But, anyways,
But yeah, that was our episode 2. We got to see a lot more of the strategies of our player captains here. We got to see some addition from the viewers and whatnot. That was really nice what you had there, Spoon. I approve. Let's see. Running up some tallies. You guys will actually be by at least next mission, once we get through the combat. A lot of the stuff that the ships moving around should be ready by next week in character. We'll continue the battle next game. I will update the map accordingly. But with that, that is game for the moment. I hope you guys had fun for this episode. We got to see a little bit into the combat as well, and the weird voicings I'm giving this unknown enemy for the moment. I promise I would get a better voice actor for these guys. But yeah, there you go. I hope you guys had fun.
Yeah.
But
That was...
anyways, folks, thanks for joining us for our episode 2 of our RP event. Join us next week and see just what's going to happen. Is the station going to live? Are we going to shoot the jackass out of the sky, or what's going to happen?
Feel free also to join in. And I know that it's me and Blade are in here. We're kind of like the lead captains, but as Spoon has done, he's joined in, and we're kind of expecting him to take one of the starships in this fleet, or a nearby fleet. He's going to help out. We had a captain help out in the last episode, so feel free, even if you're just giving what your ship might have done in the background to help us out, or if you're actually wanting to join in on the combat and the roles, feel free to.
But yeah. Anyways, folks, indeed, thanks for joining us. We'll pick up where we left off next week, and we'll see what kind of shenanigans so that our captains can get into. But for now, folks, this is the Pilot Review Show, reminding you to have your tribbles spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.
See ya.